Hello and welcome to This is MediaCity. I am Stephen Chapman and today I'm joined by Gary from Gas Music. And let's face it, this one is a roller coaster. We cover everything from the music sector to soundtracking, things like the Gillette commercial and many others, but also what more we can do or we should be doing in Greater Manchester for the creative sector. Gary from Gas Music, welcome to This is MediaCity. You've got your own podcast as well, so you're used to this kind of vibe. Before we kick off though and find out all about your company, we start things with a little bit of psychological insight into your mind. Pick a card, any card.
You're already stealing the way. I would like to have opened it up. There will be a comeback. Steve.
Oh, will there? Oh God, okay.
Yeah.
This sounds like a threat. Go on.
So that I wouldn't have to put my glasses on.
Oh right, sorry, I forgot about that bit. I can read it out to you.
It's all right. Favourite lunchtime hangouts. It's a real challenge because I hate to have to go to Greg's, but these steak bakes still work.
Yeah.
Wagamama's, I do love to go there, but that's maybe pushing it a bit too much for a heavy lunch, but it's still worth going. And I love the Italian bit opposite the Blue.
Oh, that's had a few shout-outs on this podcast so
But you know, I'm northern and old, but you know, £9 for a butty and a drink is pushing it a bit too much.
The lasagnas are pretty awesome.
But I think the winner, for value for money, is got to be the curry place.
Yes, they're amazing, aren't they? Just round the corner, they're quiet.
The Chapati Cafe.
Yeah, they're just by the car park. If you haven't been there, try them out. They are really good.
So for £7, curry, chips and rice.
Yeah, highly recommended. I'll give you one more. I'll read this out to you if you don't have to.
Don't have to squint.
So you don't have to squint.
There you go.
Go on then.
You're so kind.
Ta-da. Last gig you went to?
Wow. The mighty Bruce Springsteen.
Now, am I right in thinking that I saw social media posts with you and Bruce in it?
It wasn't me, it was our head of production. But do you want the tale?
I do want the tale. Yeah, we got Bruce. We've got 2 podcasts in the last 3 weeks, and both of them have got Bruce Springsteen on them.
Okay.
So give us your best.
Well, you can push this out to see whether this is the story and the best triumvirate. You know, the rule of 3, right? So bear with me. So it's 2 Sunday afternoons ago.
Yeah.
And I'm at Lostock Cricket Club watching my son play cricket with my wife, and it's sunny, and the stress has disappeared. A couple of pints in, my wife gets a text from one of the teachers at school to say, "Hey Lisa, 2 tickets available for Bruce Springsteen. Would your husband want them?" So Lisa says to me, "Do you want them?" And I went, "Yeah."
Yeah.
It's my brother's birthday. He's a pain in the butt to get presents for, but he's a Springsteen fan. Done. I'm thinking, yeah, celebration. We've got tickets for Bruce. Don't have to worry about my brother's birthday present. Couple more IPAs. And I start walking round and my phone goes and it's, I don't know if you know, John Nunn, head of studios here.
Dot 10.
John Nunn, Dot 10. I'm thinking, no, he's up. Hi John, yeah, you've just sat on your phone. Because I was a little bit giddy. And he said, no. Nervousness. He said, I'm in a bit of a fix. I said, what is it? He said, I need to use your studio tomorrow. I've got to get some vocals recorded. That's not a problem, mate. He said, "Oh, you're a lifesaver." So, but the issue is it's 4 till 7 and it might run on a little bit. Not a problem. And I'm just thinking, yeah, Aaron and Nathan, they'll smash this out of the park. Any other issues? He said, yeah, he's a bit finicky with his mics. I think, well, if we've not got it here, we'll speak to Martin. I don't think it's probably a Neumann, that's probably bad. Don't worry, we'll get it in, because the sun and the beer and the cricket and everything's... Who is it? And he says, it's Bruce Springsteen. Because he was rehearsing
in the studio in HQ1, wasn't he?
And the other thing, so my daughter is just leaving, my daughter's walking off to the side, and she's looking at me, because obviously she knows Dad's ever so well, and she said, "Dad, you have this look in your face, which is not your usual, no sorted, you have this look which was like, bordering on a little bit of nervous terror." But all it was just like, I'm just quite confused, thinking, tickets, Anthony, beer, Nigel, Bruce Springsteen. So I won't swear here, but this started a sequence of, you can fill in the gap, this started a sequence of every phone call I made thereafter started off with F off, and then no, bear with me, and repeat what I've just said to you. So leave it with me, John, it's not an issue. And then my wife says, "What's that?" And I went, and she went, F off. My daughter came back and said, "What was that? What was that?" And I went, and she went, Dad, no way. Anyway, so I'm walking around, then I ring our head of production, Aaron, tell him the story. He says, F off. And I said, we go back to John, and John then loops me in with George Travis, Bruce's producer, who's just cool as chips, super laid back. We need a Teskey M473 and a preamp, and I'm thinking, yeah. No idea. We relayed that to Aaron Bentley, head of production at Gas Music. Do you know how much this stuff costs? And I said, just find it. We'll be okay.
It's Bruce Springsteen.
So he rings Martin at Eve Studios. We get the gear done, dusted. John's happy. Aaron then says, right, I'm off to go and record Bruce. Aaron's a super cool guy, but he goes white. And then at 6:30, he rings back. Pictures of him and Bruce. I'm working on another project, but done, dusted, sorted, tickets, and then we all go to see Bruce. I take my brother, reasonable seats, and then I'm seeing pictures from Aaron and Greg, our creative director, down below, and Bruce is there, and Greg's filming him, singing, whoa, 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 and then Aaron, to add insult to injury and impose immense jealousy, says, George rang me on the afternoon before the gig and said, you can get down early, man. I'll show you my rig. So have you been to the Cop Arena?
It's nice.
Have you seen the size of the band? So there's Gretsch's Galore, Telecaster, there's a grand piano. So Aaron is then just wandering around going, I plug it in like that. And I can see the way I'm thinking, what, routed the cables? But it's the E Street band set up, Aaron's walking around checking out Bruce's rig. So that really happened.
That is amazing. But what was he doing at your studio? Is it because he'd come up with a song? Did he have to test his vocals, or were you not allowed to say anything?
70% of the back end, but I think all we got was, and it sounds like a lovely story, so I'm going to kind of embellish it and think, this is the truth. So I think Bruce had said he'd been working on some tracks, they had the WAVs already done instrumentally, and when they were here practicing downstairs as though they're bashing out a future, and he said, I won't mind, I need to lay a vocal down. So I think he'd gone to John to say, hey, I want to lay a vocal down to this instrumental track I've got, and I want to do it tomorrow. And I guess John's probably gone, oh, sure, you can do it, and then hands it up. And so that's what he was doing. He had a track, we laid down the vocals, he loved it, he loved the way he was looked after. And he was, taking picture of, we had analog synths and old drum machines and old amps, and he loved it. So I think that Aaron was saying there was an essence of, this is great to be getting, back to basics. And I think he's a back to basics. He's a good guy. The kind of a contradiction to say he's from good stock in New Jersey and a great working class guy who just happens to be worth $1.2 billion, but he had a great time.
So let's rewind a little bit, because we talked about studio. You have got a studio in Blue Tower. Tell me a bit about Gas Music beyond the celebrities.
Beyond the celebrities.
Because you set up quite some time ago over at
Blue. We're in this is our 10th year.
Yeah.
So we're an integrated audio agency. So
okay, what on earth does that mean?
Well, we've kind of grown into that to say we're all things audio. So we can do music supervision, we'll compose bespoke music, we can do reworking of a commercial famous track, we'll do then all the audio post-production, so mix, master, R128, sound design, Foley, voiceover, search, cast, direct, record, and anything else I've kind of forgotten, but all under that umbrella of. So I think when we started, we thought, well, we'll do bespoke music for TV, film, and advertising. And then somebody will say, hey, do you do commercial reworks? I think, yeah, of course we do.
Commercial reworks is like, I really love that track, but I can't afford that track. Is there something that can sound a little bit like that track kind of thing? Is it? Or inspired by?
Well, there's two things. One, because you've got to be very, very careful. So you'll have seen the Dreams on TV, Dreams Beds, Singing Beds. Can anybody find me somebody to love? So that's a commercial rework. So the agency said, we want that because it fits with our creative narrative. So we then license the copyright and make a brand new version. So that's what we did. So that's a commercial rework. On Aerial, at the moment, you'll see a little boxing guy. So, is this the creative idea in the world? Very Liquid's tough. Right, so we put the theme tune to Rocky on there.
Fair enough.
So we buy the rights for the copyright, and then we recreate the Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
So there's two things. One, the copyright can be hellishly expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm not breaking any confidence here. So I think that's probably 150 to 200 for the right to copy and use on TV. Then there's a thing called most favoured nation. So if you want to buy the copyright and then you want to buy the original master, you have to pay exact same fee. Or you come to somebody like us and we don't have to pay 150 to 200 grand. We remake it at a far more competitive rate. But the same thing is, we won't do it now, but we do have a Pepsi challenge where you listen to the original and then you listen to what we made. And because we're using modern mixing and recording technologies and instrumentation, it sounds exactly the same in terms of the the bite and the drive and the feel of the guitars. But it sounds so much better because it's made with better kit. So there's two reasons to do it. One, because we've got the financial quotient, and secondly, we want to make it sound better. So that was Dreams, The Eye of the Tiger, and then you'll see Peter Crouch on Aerial at the moment, and the track behind that. The agency wanted a skiffle, fun, so we used Bill Haley and his Comets.
Yeah.
From 1953, Crazy Man Crazy, and it was the first ever Billboard #1, which we didn't realise, and it was the first time it's ever been synced on TV, and it was the first ever piece of music in what you call a background piece of music in a piece of moving image for like an omnibus documentary film, but I'm trying to get to it, involving James Dean.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's on with Aerial at the moment. So that's we find a track and we buy the copyright and the masters, we shove it on, or we then rework it exactly the same, I Have the Tiger, or you take it for the Dreams commercial where the creative wanted it to be singing beds, so the characters of the beds were then layered to replace the brilliant singing of Roger and Freddie on Queen, so we layered 4 different singing beds. A fantastic job, and I say so myself because it does sound, and it is a fantastic bit of gas music audio work.
And how difficult is that part of the job? Because it sounds complicated in terms of the licensing, because I'm assuming you have to go through publishing, record label, licensing, or is it not quite like that with this kind of stuff?
That's, again, very, very good question. It's super simple, but there's the copyright side, the right to use, which you have to go through the publishers, and then you've got the masters, which are going back through the record label. And
that's so that you can separate the track out and muck around with it.
Yeah, but then the nuances between. So if you've got multiple writers, The Eye of the Tiger, good example of 2. And apparently one's very, very difficult to deal with. But you'll have other issues like, I think that the Sex Pistols, we did a film back in the day for Vivienne Westwood's son, so to get the rights for, well, it's in the TV, we all know that. They all hate each other. So when it comes down to, so if the 3 of them had said, yeah, we'll do it 50 grand a piece, what usually happens, it gets to Johnny Rotten, and he says, no, I want a bazillion quid. Come on. So, but if you've then gone forward to think, yeah, we're going to use this particular record, and we've got approval from only part of the parties, and the last guy finds out, effectively, in simple terms, you've got them over a barrel, so he can say, I want more. So then it becomes a financial challenge. It can then get it can get very, very legal, and it can get very, very messy. So there should really be an ability, maybe I'm showing my age, where you would go back to say, well, we're going to put the Mock Turtles immediately comes into my mind under Vodafone. Can you dig it?
Yeah.
That went on, and it gave them a career, it gave them a real boost. And I think the brand was happy, the publishers were happy, and obviously the band was happy. When now it's getting more and more like you can go to a label, but the rights to use those tracks are then beholden to the estate. Dylan sold his tracks, so you have to go through Universal, and then Universal have to speak to Dylan's estate. And I won't swear, but it comes down to a phrase within Goodfellas, which is "F you pay." I'm not moving. Pay. Yeah. We put an Edith Piaf track on. La Vie en Rose went on Herbal Essences, which went through Sony. It's 400 grand. No, can you do? They've only got 280. It's 400 grand. We maybe get 300. It's 400 grand. Come on, we can have a chat. Can. The estate said we want as much as possible because they're sweating their assets. Which is going back to the answer: is it simple to get? It is, but then the financial implications are huge. Queen have just sold their back catalogue, $1.2 billion, £1 billion. So when you're thinking in the creative world of putting or using music to make things better and fun and enjoyable, this financial quotient is really up there because they need to get a return on their investment. Hence, the Queen was a considerable chunk to help them sell more beds. So, and the answer will be, have we sold more beds to actually justify that spend? Yes, we have. Happy days.
So this is one part of your role, the license track, because you've also done well with Gillette recently as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's another famous, say, Mock Turtles, but the Gillette advert, that's one of the biggest advert tracks there is, isn't there?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was great fun. I mean, I've got to come back to you. What do you think of it? Do you remember the track?
Yeah, of course. I'm not going to sing it though. But it was a new reworking of it, wasn't it? It was Tom
Grennan.
Yeah.
Well, the agency was they wanted to get audio branding, so we got to have some kind of resonance, I think. So we'd jump around for a bit. So you can go back to Gillette over the last 5 years had Rag and Bone Man, I'm Only Human, after all. So he's doing his thing. And then it always comes off with the Gillette, there's a jingle, an outro CT at the end, which will go on at the end, which was a bit messy. And then they moved from that to say, is that representative of the brand? Now somebody within that had thought, yeah, it's a big guy, it's soulful, he's got a beard. And kind of beyond that, they would justify the usage just by waffling on forever. But they chose the track, it's a chunk of cash because it was famous. Then they moved to Raheem Sterling with the green on, which was Rocket Fuel by DJ Shadow. And that was a heavy investment because every time you see Gillette, you see Raheem Sterling, you get the green, we know the colour and we get the font, and Rocket Fuel's playing in the background. So that ran for 3 years. So those are kind of the cycles of 2 to 3 years, and it worked. And then so when they approached us, they were thinking, well, what do we do next? What is the sound of Gillette? So when you look at those two, I can't remember what the previous one was, but they're very, very disparate or disjointed. From an audio perspective, there's no continuity, really. And this is kind of, I'm going to contradict myself now. So, but what was the continuity then to get to Tom Grennan? So what they were thinking internally was, well, we've got this iconic track. So whether you want to, slag it off and say it's from the horrible world of, overproduced, loud, noisy, big jacketed, huge synths and flare lights of the 80s.
Yeah, it was very of the time, wasn't it?
And John Parr did it, St Elmo's Fire and Simply the Best, and those full on over the top. But basically, the Best a Man Can Get was commissioned by the Gillette company to a famous jingle writer called Jake Holmes. So he did Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. He was a jingle man, and he would be sat in a room to say, sell Coca-Cola for money, please. And he'd say, I can't think of what he would, buy some Coke. Or he would, and Dr. Pepper, and he was the man. So they'd said, we commission you to write a song which says everything about Gillette. The good starting point, I think, was that Gillette said our strapline is the best a man can get. So from a songwriter perspective, I think it's very easy.
It's quite nice.
And it is super simple. So Jake Holmes had then just written, you're looking good, you're looking fine, Gillette, the best a man can get. And that was it, done and dusted. And they went, oh my God. They paid him a sum, so they own 100% of that song because he was commissioned to do that. Yeah. And then John Parr and Jake Holmes got together because John Parr had said, hey, we can make this into a song. Which they did do. So we obviously removed Gillette and put in the best. But it was the same melody. And then that went off to have a different life as a song. So when they came to us, they didn't realise they actually owned the song. And they
didn't realise it?
They didn't realise it. And then it came down to deciding how they wanted it to be performed. And it was, again, they overthunk it too much. It's got to be masculine, but we don't want to be too masculine. So, well, it's for guys shaving. Yeah, but we don't want to be too masculine. So they had to go through they were not going to upset people. And then they came up with a concise list of who do we want to sing it. I think Dave Grohl went on there, then you had Sam Fender. And then when they got into the troubadour guitar people, I think Sam Fender, Tom Grennan and somebody else whose name escapes me. And then it was a case of who wants to do it. And then that came down to, I think, a bit like the Mock Turtles thinking, I'd love to be on there because it's good for me, it's good for my career and it's good for the brand. Versus there was two other names of I'm going to milk this for all I can. And stupidly, and I was really pleased that the Gillette team said, go away. Yeah. And Tom was great. He's a really nice guy. Apart from trying to pretend he was a Coventry City fan and then admitting in the studio that he was actually a United fan. I said, come on, Tom. But he was a nice guy. And just one example, I think he played a big gig, maybe Crystal Palace or somewhere in town in London last year. And the head of Sony and the head of brand were on stage with him, and they planted somebody in the crowd with a big banner saying, sing the Gillette motif. And his manager's behind with the camera thinking, please, Tom. And he looked and he said, yeah, 1, 2, 3. And the band sung it, because he just got amongst that idea of, I'm singing a jingle, but it's good fun. So his management were happy, the brand were happy, and they're now just relicensing him again for another year. So he really has been a brand ambassador. He got paid well, but he didn't say he wasn't a prima donna, and neither was his management team in terms of trying to milk it for what it was. It worked together. It worked really well, and having met him, he was great. He was good to work with.
One of the things I was going to say, and it was on one of our cards actually, speaking of Gillette, what are the jingles that kind of, or the adverts, music adverts that kind of stand out for you as being, I'd love to have been involved in that?
Again, I think it comes down to that Pareto level of what's been great. Everybody quotes the Guinness Surfer.
Yeah.
Left field,
that was the one.
And then you go Flat Eric with which was the Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Oys. You mentioned 3 modern tracks there. I was just thinking about like Hovis and things like that. That they had kind of really. Do you think we're moving away a bit from classical and trying to get more into pop? Does it make a difference, or is it?
Ridley Scott was the Hovis ad.
Yeah, he's done all right, hasn't he?
Yeah. What were we going with the music?
I was thinking that obviously I'm guessing when we were talking publisher and ownership and things like that, while modern tracks are amazing and people instantly recognise them, classical tracks are probably cheaper, aren't they? Aren't they out of copyright?
Yeah, it's great. We've been trying to have a push on, there's a thought leadership piece we put out in the creative world of going back to basics. And yeah, it's why wouldn't you go back to the pop stars of the 18th and 19th century? You know, if it's Bach or a Debussy or a Sartre piece, and just this is from my limited knowledge of classical music. You know, we'd all have the greatest classical chill out or the greatest classical, and Vivaldi's Four Seasons would be in there.
They used to do compilation CDs of classical music you've heard on ads. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So we're advocating go back to that. There was a piece we were working on. They ended up spending an absolute fortune on a modern piece, but then the modern piece was then reworked in a different style. And I think once you remove the actual the nature of the song and then you rework it, even though you still have to pay for the copyright, it does lose, I think, a certain aspect. So what we were then challenging is to say, well, you can go back and use a classical piece. Clair de Lune, I think it's called Je ne puis by Sartre. And we will know them. My simple mind knows these, and they are phenomenally brilliant, melodic, wonderful pieces of work which you can rework now. And the layman out there, the me people watching, go, oh, well, that's a brilliant piece, without knowing exactly where it's from, because it's timeless. But back to the cost, because it's out of copyright, it costs you nothing. So you can rework it. And I'm hoping that the creative world is starting to, wake up and think, well, we're just selling stuff for money, really, aren't we? So, what's the benefit of a commercial track? And you've got to ask yourself, the benefit is it's immediately recognizable, and then you then have to balance that against the financial quotient. Do I really want to do that based upon what I've said earlier of all the heritage music being gobbled up by stakeholders who want to sweat their assets? So there's a lot of investment gone on stuff in things which may or may not hold its value in the way as a Picasso is still holding its value. Will music really hold its value? The whole debacle then on the use of modern music into the AI challenge, which we've got.
AI was just in the back of my mind then, because that must be, that's the one thing that's for music particularly, I imagine it's constantly in the background because it can learn.
One of the big players was the Google backed piece. It was called Claude 1 or Claude 2, but there was billions of pounds invested in that piece of the brain. Let's call it the AI brain. But that was being fed by modern classics. So I think 3 of the big labels, Universal being one, and there was 3 great tracks, A Wonderful World, Born to Be Wild,
yes.
was because as a guitar track, so you've got modern classic, guitar track, and a Rolling Stones track. So the publishers of those 3, because it did cover a bandwidth, and these were all going into the machine. So the machine was working, saying, we want I can't use that one, a bit of Joy Division meets Stravinsky. Good Joy Division and Stravinsky. Wow. And you think, yeah, but it's kind of got Stravinsky in it, it's got a bit of Joy Division thing. So the click which then got the publishers to actually say, well, this bazillion-dollar thing, which is, stripping parts of different elements of these great songs, is actually working on our copyright. Without being able to feed it with all these things, what's coming out wouldn't be as unique and brilliant as it is. Therefore, it cannot be intrinsically new.
No.
So they then challenge back to say, if you're going to continue building this, notwithstanding the fact that they've invested lots of cash in this machine, saying, you need to give me something back. And I think, well, how? So if you think of the mechanic which would go into, say, when it's played on TV, on Britain's Got Talent at 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening, whenever that's played, you're going to have to pay 100 grand usage. So would they try and put that equation into there to say, well, if you are going to put my copyright in and it's going to go on this kind of media, therefore you need to give me cash. The bandwidth is so wide,
isn't it? Yeah.
So I think there's been a whole put on that to say, well, no, until we can come up with a solution to make sure that we're going to be recompensed and rewarded adequately for the use of our copyright, you need to stop. So, but I think the thing rolling through the middle, which our governments are saying, well, it's getting in the way of business. Let's just throw roughshod over it and get on with it. They need to just wise up a little bit. But that's a whole different ballgame because the way we do, I think, represent and look after the creative services from a UK perspective in our country is not really managed, in my humble opinion, adequately. So I'm hoping that the government will see sense and say no, because even if I can get it, this is copyrighted gold dust. This really needs to be trusted and respected and guarded adequately, so that these big global monsters can't suddenly come along and make things from other people's work.
It is. I think that part of it is scary because obviously the government's seen this AI as this massive thing that's going to make lots of money and provide lots of employment. What they haven't seen is what impact is going to have on creative industry, which is one of the UK's biggest sectors. Let's face it. They need to be supporting the creative industry more than ever anyway. This is not necessarily helping that in any way whatsoever.
No, it's not. I think that the support would come from just taking that model and say, well, this is how it works. How do we get over, the need for these great, assets which already exist, and recompense them properly.
We need to know where that information is coming from that's feeding the brain, don't we?
Indeed.
Speaking a little bit of the pushing the creative sector, I know you've been really pushing the North, MediaCity, Northwest. I'm trying to speak to not just globally, but also to London and others, saying we need to start coming together and start looking at how we can promote the North and the creative sector up here. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that, because some of the facts and figures you've been telling me over the years are quite frightening, really, if you're an agency in the North.
Yeah, frightening. It's good. So I think you need to visualise, threat versus opportunity. I think so.
Yeah.
Could it be catastrophic, or is it a huge opportunity? And I think that's always the starting point. So I am a positive person, so I'm going to lose threat.
Yeah, let's go for the biggest opportunity we can have for North.
The biggest threat is not doing anything. So, but the positive, the opportunities. So, the creative GDP for the UK as a GVA is about 120 to 120 billion. TV, film, advertising, marketing, media spend. It's a huge number. And then if you look at what we have, so as Greater Manchester's got 4.4 billion. It's a big number. That equates to, I think, 78 to 80,000 jobs. But then,
are they full-time or just?
I think that yes, they're employed.
Employed.
Yeah. So of the facts and figures, and this is not two things I hate, but then we're going to have to cover. One is the levelling up, and the way we've approached that has been. It reminds me of, the mayor, or the mayor is on a level with Oliver and his bowl of gruel. If we're making great, cool, fantastic stuff, it stands up all the time. It's about understanding, what's the level of your ambition, and then what's the aspiration to get there. And I think the ambition for Greater Manchester has dropped off. All right, we had in the last 15 to 20 years, it's the financial crash. We had the calamity of the last government. We've had the issue with with Brexit. Then we had COVID. So there've been huge issues, but the opportunity for Manchester to get a bigger piece of the pie is huge. So we did a little piece on what are the top 100 businesses in Greater Manchester who actually advertise and market. So Adidas to AstraZeneca, Kellogg's, PG Tips, N Brown, JD Sports, Network Rail, the airport. ITV did a thing on the slippage of media spend since COVID. So the guys at ITV and said, it's just this unconscious bias. They'll just give it to the guys in London. They'll do that as well, and they'll do that. And now we're stepping back, and the question is, which I'm trying to put forward as well, why? And what do we need to do to get the C-suite from the business I've just mentioned to say, hey, look at the creative community here. So the top down to ask the question, the bottom up then, which is the challenge for us all, is, are these people actually here? And I do think there's a piece of work to be done just to pull together the good and the great across Manchester, because there are some brilliant businesses, but working in isolation. So I think for a great city, there are so many disparate pockets of great creatives hidden away, not by their own design. It's just, we'll keep our heads down and get on with it.
But the sum is greater than the parts.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're a massive brand, you think, well, actually, I can go to that agency in London because they're actually one thing. Whereas if I go to, I don't know, you or me, then they're thinking, well, yeah, his company can do that, but he's going to bring in that person, and there's kind of that element of the risk is increased. But that's because the way up north, we've always done it. We kind of collaborate and work together rather than necessarily collaborating, working together, and then bash, we're all one big company.
Yeah, it's great. You've kind of given us almost the answer and also the solution, because
Thank you very much.
but that again, this is back to thinking: do we work that way? And and is that a threat? No, it's no. The opportunity is just to come together, because I think that the good, that they are here.
If you come to an agency at MediaCity or a producer or whatever at MediaCity, if you wanted to, you could probably get most, if not all, of the stuff done on campus now.
Yes.
Same in Greater Manchester. I mean, working together, pretty much you can have any part of your creative dream realised within this tiny little area of the world.
Yes.
And that's really what we should be selling, because I don't think there's much we can't do within this few square miles.
100%. The council, the business and creative. We had Tony Wilson, who was just doing his thing, but thing organically happened. And we do things differently here now. That's become a lame throwaway for lazy branding of Manchester. But it's still used, and it pisses me off. We'll still see, if you're going to use the hacienda and you're going to put yellow and black on there, well, it's all right to doff your cap back to the history, but take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I'm agreeing with everything. Everything
the thing
is
about
there.
Tony was, because I worked with him quite a lot at Granada, and then I produced one of his shows, was that when you were with Tony, his history was quiet. He knew it was there, but when we did a show, he was desperate to get new stuff on. He was like, Stephen, we need to get Screamo on this show. This was 20 years ago. He wasn't thinking like Manchester and Raymond looks back, and it's constantly looking back. When Tony was alive and was here and was being Tony, we always look forward.
Yeah.
And since we've lost him, that's not stopped. We've constantly thought about yellow and black.
Yeah.
And if Tony was still here, we wouldn't be looking back as much as we are.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
But yes, and I think we've lost that voice. But I think the click to pull the great people together, alluding to what you just said, if we could make the best TV, the best film, and the best advertising that you're going to see on the planet right here, and we believe we can because the resources are here. Are they here? Yes. It's just saying, well, where are they? And I think the where are they is that pinnacle of just somebody to hang our collective creative hearts, heads and souls on, because it is the safety blanket. So when Tony was saying, come up here for In the City, because we're not going to deal with London. Well, Tony said that, and you can get behind him. So, but the creative community as a collective has that ability and capability to do that. And I'm thinking we just need to write it under something. And that something is, I'm kind of using a Nike thing of just do it. All the answers are always in front of you.
Yeah, and we need to start looking forward.
Yes.
Enough powerhouses and industrial
Enough,
revolution.
yeah, enough.
We said when you sat down before we turned the cameras on, we'll be here till 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And we're not going to be, but it's quite funny that we usually go for
don't.
half an hour, and I could still talk to you for another hour or so. Yeah. We need to talk very quickly before we let you go. You do a podcast as well, which has been hugely successful, which you started during lockdown. Tell us a name, give it a plug, just so that people can go on and listen to you a bit more.
The Having a Gas With.
And you've had some brilliant guests in there, haven't you? Go on, throw a few names at us.
Andrew Sheps produced Adele 21. Steve Albini produced Nirvana. Eric Valentine produced Queens of the Stone Age. Sean Everett produced War on Drugs. But because it's set out to allow people to talk about what they love and what they do. Anybody who's into music, I'd advocate to go on, because Andrew Sheps will tell you how to get the vocal harmonies recorded and delivered through the record by positioning Adele's voice. It's there. And these are guys telling you how to do what you want to do. So if you want to go into looking at to be a creative person and be a brilliant at your creative work, all the answers are out there. You just need to listen, read, research, and then set your own ambitions to do it better. And that's what the podcast.
And where can we get your podcast? Is it YouTube, Spotify?
It's on YouTube under Having a Gas With, and as a footnote, talking to the good and great across the creative and music world. And they're all on there.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much for coming on This Is Media City. I guess we'll probably have to have you back, because I think I've barely covered what we started, but thanks ever so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for watching and listening to This Is Media City, which is our weekly podcast that comes out every Friday. So remember to like, subscribe, comment and more. This Is Media City is a 39 Pictures production for Media City and in partnership with the University of Salford. And all the team behind the scenes are graduates from the University of Salford. So please remember to like, subscribe, comment and share. And we will see you next week. The production team are Meg Bond, Tegan Easton, Akila Hewitt and James Young.